Hello and welcome to the best trails of 2024. I'm Bonnie and today I'm going to be sharing with you some of my favorite trails that I got to explore in 2024. It was another amazing year of exploring all of the natural beauty here in Washington State and a few places outside of the state, and I just wanted to highlight some of my favorites. This is a very biased list. I just like sharing all of my favorite places and some things that I just love about our mountains and just the nature around here. I'm going to be sharing my top 5 trails and then some honorable mentions. But before we get into the list, some statistics. In 2024, I hiked 52 trails covering 282 miles with 95,100 feet of elevation gain. And wow, it is amazing to think like all the mountains I managed to climb and all the cool places I got to see for all of that climbing and all of those miles. It was absolutely worth it and just amazing exercise. Oh, and I should mention that this is a 100% biased list. I tend to prefer high alpine mountain summits, alpine meadows, and lakes. So those tend to be my favorite things. I also like a good challenge. So if there's a scramble or a really steep incline, that is something else that I like. So yeah, there's no objectivity here. These are just my favorites. And now into the list. So I have compiled my top 5 trails that were the most memorable for me in 2024. But I'm gonna start off with 2 honorable mentions that didn't quite make the list because a few were just a little bit better for me, but I still wanted to shout them out because they were both very memorable experiences for me. The first of which would be Heliotrope Ridge. This was a stunning trail that was shockingly easy in the Mount Baker Wilderness to one of Mount Baker's glaciers. An up-close view with one of the massive glaciers that covers Mount Baker was just incredible. The size of this glacier was just jaw-dropping, and it was such a unique trail. There are very few like it in the state, and it's also just gorgeous and shockingly easy. It's just a little bit under 2,000 feet of gain, and it goes through the gorgeous forest, and then you get into Mount Baker's Alpine where there's so many creeks and stuff, and it was just stunning all around and definitely one of the most unique trails that I did in 2024. The second honorable mention would be Mount Defiance. I did this on Father's Day week with my dad, and it's just one of the coolest summits on I-90 in my opinion, and we hit it at like the perfect time for there to just be fields of avalanche and glacier lilies, and the view from the summit was just so cool. You can see so many lakes from the top. The panoramic views were just some of the best in that specific area of Washington. Definitely a memorable summit, a really fun climb, and it was fun to do it with my dad. So coming in at number 5, I have Hannigan Peak. This is about as far north as you can get in Washington before you get into Canada, and it is right on the edge of North Cascades National Park, and the views absolutely make you feel that way. You can see some of Washington's most iconic mountains from the summit, from Mount Baker to Mount Shuksan to more of the North Cascades, and the climb itself is just stunning. The views open up in the first mile going up that valley, and they just keep getting better. And then the final mile up to the summit, it reminded me of Cascade Pass and Sahale Arm with just the sweeping views in all directions. It's just jaw-dropping views everywhere you look. And I absolutely got what I came for, which was just the remote feeling of the North Cascades and just some of the most beautiful mountains on display. This is a long trail, but it is well worth every single step and every single mile you have to do to get to the summit. And gosh, the final mile of trail is just gorgeous. So coming off of that, I wanted to shout out the best scramble because I got in a couple of scrambles this year. It is one of my favorite things to do in the Alpine, and I did quite a few this year. Now, this one is a tricky one to say because the best scramble that I did was High Box. The final summit scramble up to the summit of High Box Mountain was some of the best Alpine scrambling I have had. All the holds were really fun. It was some proper class 3 scrambling. It was so satisfying to do. It didn't feel scary, but it also was like, yes, I'm actually doing, you know, some proper climbing. I will say the approach up High Box is miserable. So the approach to get to the scramble is not fun at all, but the scramble itself absolutely makes up for it in my opinion. And of course you're rewarded with an amazing view at the top. Coming in at number 4 on my list is Green Mountain, and this was my first time in the Glacier Peak Wilderness and really where I started to fall in love with this area of the state. And Green Mountain, I think, showcases a lot of the amazing things that the Glacier Peak Wilderness has to offer, from the gorgeous alpine meadows to the up-close views of Glacier Peak. And Glacier Peak is one of Washington's 5 volcanoes, but it is a mountain you have to climb and hike to see. It is not visible from any roads, so you have to climb to get a view of it, and it is so worth it. But I hit Green Mountain at the perfect time when all of its lush meadows were in full wildflower bloom. All of the marmots were out, so I saw so much wildlife, and of course got some stunning up-close views of Glacier Peak. And on top of that, there is the bonus that Green Mountain is home to one of Washington's historic fire lookouts. So this trail really had everything. It was so much fun to do, and just on the absolute perfect day in perfect conditions, it was gorgeous and worth a few mosquito bites that I got to get to the top of that mountain. It was just so much fun. And speaking of fire lookouts, this year was definitely the year of fire lookouts for me. I visited 5 different fire lookouts in Washington, and they were all incredible, but one of them was definitely my favorite, and that would be the Winchester Mountain Lookout. That is such a cool lookout. First of all, for its location, it has stunning 360 views of the North Cascades and the Mount Baker Wilderness, but also the interior of the lookout is one of the best. You can spend the night, and it has just been fixed up beautifully by the Mount Baker Hiking Club, so it is just the perfect lookout all around. And that brings me into number 3 on my list, which should come as no surprise to anybody, and that would be Winchester Mountain. Winchester Mountain, I have literally been dreaming of climbing that mountain for over a decade, and I finally made it happen, and it was just the perfect timing. I wanted to make sure I went at peak fall color and on a clear day to get to appreciate the views, and this is just a stunning hike start to finish. It starts you off in the Alpine. There are Alpine colors all around, and then just the views start out great and just keep getting better. And if you want to know why I really like this mountain, I encourage you to go watch the video. But it just has everything. It has gorgeous mountain views. It's remote, it's tranquil, stunning fall Alpine color. And of course, the fire lookout on top was absolutely the best one I saw this year. It's just such a cool trail. I highly recommend, assuming you can safely get your car and yourself up that road, because the forest road to get to that trail is no joke. I am warning you. Now I want to do something that I have done for every single one of my top trails lists, and that is best trail under 1,000 feet of gain, because I like a challenge. I like to do some hard climbing, but I always like to highlight that you definitely do not need to do some crazy climbing to see some amazing places in this state. And this year, that would absolutely be Barclay Lake. I hiked this with my sister, and it was absolutely perfect. This takes you through some gorgeous wilderness, beautiful mossy forest, and we went when there were so many mushrooms coming out, so it was so much fun to do some flora spotting. And then Barclay Lake itself is really cool because it gets you right up close with the sheer cliffs of Mount Bering, which is just a super impressive mountain, one of the coolest looking mountains in Washington State. So it is a great trail. It is super easy. There's nothing technical about it, and so I think it's great for families. If you are just starting out hiking, it's a great beginner trail with fantastic payoff. Coming in at number 2, I have Hoodoo Peak. This is one of Washington's top 100 peaks, and if you do a top 100 peak, you are in for an adventure and you are in for views, and that is exactly what I got. Hoodoo Peak was really unique, first of all, because I did it during peak larch season, so the larch trees were just lighting up the entire mountain golden, and it's also a really tall mountain that is so far east, so you get this really unique look of, in one direction you're seeing all these incredible mountains, and then in the other you're looking at the rolling hills of eastern Washington. It's a really unique location, and just the climb itself was so much fun. It starts out with this easy climb through up to the basin, and then the final 1,500 feet is a boulder hopping scramble, which was just so much fun, especially surrounded by golden larch trees. I don't think I could have asked for more perfect conditions. It was just so much fun, and I mean, I have yet to be let down by a top 100 peak, so it has to be Hoodoo. And then finally, I did want to shout out my favorite trail that I did that was not in Washington, because I do like to get outside of the state every now and then and explore some other places, because the entire world is gorgeous and I don't get the opportunity to travel a ton, but when I do, I like to make it count. So my favorite trail outside of Washington was Ryan Mountain in Southern California in Joshua Tree National Park. I hiked it for sunrise and it was just gorgeous. It was a beautiful, easy trail, but doing it for sunrise and having the summit all to myself and seeing the sun color the desert was just incredible. One of the most memorable sunrises this year as well, and I saw quite a few, but it's just so fun sometimes to get out and see locations that are so different from where I am. As you can see, I am just surrounded by trees and moss and rain all the time, so a desert is very, very different. So that was really cool. It was a gorgeous trail. I had so much fun, very memorable experience. And finally, my favorite trail this year, and this should be no surprise, that would be Mount Maud. This was one of my backpacking trips this year, and this was another top 100 peak. And this one was special because this is the first time I've climbed over 9,000 feet in Washington, which was really fun. I wanted to climb a 9,000 foot peak, and this is the one I went with, and it was just stunning. First of all, the backpacking trip went perfectly. Nothing went wrong. The route was great. I knew exactly what I was in for and I was prepared. I had one of the best campsites I have ever had in my life. That might be the best campsite I've ever had in my life. Seeing sunrise and sunset and just being deep in the Glacier Peak wilderness. Like, that felt like true wilderness, just surrounded by so many massive mountains. No sign of civilization anywhere. And then the actual climb up to Mount Maud was just incredible. It is just so much fun to do some of these bigger peaks, and it was just so satisfying and such a fun climb too. Again, it was a bit of a slog, but that summit made it absolutely worth it. And first time over 9,000 feet in Washington, I was so excited with such a cool summit. It was just gorgeous. Like, that entire area is gorgeous. It made me want to go back over and over. I saw so many places I want to explore. And Green Mountain started my captivation with the Glacier Peak wilderness. This is the one that really made me fall in love with it. It is just such a special place, such a cool mountain, and it was just that true feeling of absolute perfect solitude in the wilderness, and definitely just one of the highlights of exploring the wilderness I have ever had in my life. So gorgeous mountain, beautiful area, perfect backpacking trip. It had to be Mount Maud. So that is my list, and at the end of every year I am always just so grateful to look back and think about like all the amazing places I got to see. I'm very grateful to have the physical ability and the time to get out into nature, and it's definitely something that I cherish and value a lot, and it has actually been great. I have seen so many of you out on trail this year. I may be very awkward in person, but I promise I like seeing you all, so don't be afraid to say hi. But I am an awkward loner, so I am socially awkward, but it has been great seeing you guys out there and seeing so many people enjoying nature, and I love seeing all your comments. Sometimes it is hard to get back to everybody, but I promise I see them, and I really appreciate all the enthusiasm and the love. But yeah, feel free to share in the comments what were some of your favorite places that you got out to explore this year, or what was your favorite place you saw me explore? I'm very interested because I like seeing everybody's taste. Like, if you're a waterfall person, what was your favorite waterfall? But yeah, just share what some of your favorite adventures you had this year were, and I hope you got out and saw some cool places and got out to see nature. Even if it is just a scenic drive, there are so many different ways to see our beautiful country and our beautiful world. But anyway, thank you for an amazing 2024. It has been great seeing you all and connecting with you, and I have been having so much fun sharing all of these videos with you, and I have a lot more plans to get into trouble in 2025. So thank you so much for watching, and of course I will end off this video with some of my favorite photos that I took in 2024. Enjoy and have a happy new year.